In December 1943, HMS Duke of York, a behemoth of the Royal Navy, navigated through the severe Arctic winter weather, but the Allied convoy was about to be attacked under the cover of the icy darkness. Lurking somewhere in the shadows lay one of the most wanted German commerce raiders, the battleship Scharnhorst, a swift hunter armed with 11-inch guns. The thick fog and howling winds leveled the playing field against Duke of York's superior 14-inch guns. Nonetheless, she held a critical advantage, her superior radar technology. As the ghostly silhouettes of the warships drew near, tensions mounted for both crews. The British radar screens flickered with the promise of contact, and the silence of the Arctic was abruptly shattered by the roar of Duke of York's accurate radar-directed gunfire. Scharnhorst, struggling with the weather, fired blindly, but maneuvered swiftly, trying to overcome the superior firepower of her enemy. But there was no escape. The Britons were committed to exploiting the radar capabilities to the fullest, and proving the weather could not stop them from taking their prey. The King George V-class battleships, a series of 5 vessels built for the British Royal Navy during the late 1930s and early 1940s, were designed under the stringent guidelines of the Washington and London Naval Treaties of 1922. These treaties restricted battleship displacement to 35,000 tons and armament to 14-inch guns, aiming to curb naval armaments post-World War I. Despite these constraints, the King George V-class incorporated a balanced design of firepower, armor, and speed, positioning them as formidable naval assets. These ships were the only battleships of their time built according to treaty standards, driven by the need to match or exceed the naval capabilities of rising powers like the Third Reich's Kriegsmarine and the Japanese Imperial Navy. British designers pushed the boundaries of the treaty's limits, either through escalatory designs or by exploiting loopholes, culminating in a class of battleships that were both innovative and strategically vital. The class was named in honor of King George V, his sons Edward VIII, Prince of Wales, and George VI, Duke of York, with the last 2 vessels named after famous 18th century Royal Navy admirals. Technically, the King George V-class battleships surpassed the treaty's displacement cap, registering over 40,000 tons and stretched 745 feet in length with a beam of 103 feet and a draft of 33 feet. Their primary armament comprised 10 14-inch guns arranged in twin turrets, 3 forward and 1 aft. Originally, 16-inch guns were considered, but the final armament choice adhered to treaty limits while still ensuring significant firepower. The Mark 7 guns could fire 1,590-pound shells at 2,400 feet per second, reaching distances up to 38,000 yards. Secondary armament included 16 Mark 1 5.25-inch dual-purpose guns for both anti-ship and anti-aircraft roles, alongside 48 Mark 8 anti-aircraft guns and 6 20mm Oerlikon anti-aircraft guns. The battleships also featured extensive armor protection, a main belt up to 14 inches thick and deck armor over 6 inches thick to shield against aerial bombs and shell fire. The conning tower had armor 4 inches thick, protecting the crew from strafing fire and enemy naval gunfire. Internally, the ships were designed to enhance survivability against torpedoes and mines through careful arrangement of armor and internal subdivision. The crew of 1,556 personnel benefited from advanced fire control systems and some of the earliest naval uses of radar, including the Type 281 air warning radar, Type 273 surface warning radar, Type 285 gunnery radar, and Type 282 for radar direction. These systems significantly improved accuracy in gunnery and aided in navigation and targeting, enhancing operational capabilities in all weather conditions. Propulsion was provided by Parsons geared steam turbines driving 4 propellers, allowing the ships to reach speeds up to 28 knots, vital for catching up to enemy ships and maneuvering effectively in combat scenarios. HMS Duke of York, the 3rd ship of the King George V class, was launched in February 1940 and completed by November 1941. Upon completion, she joined the home fleet at Scapa Flow, ready to engage in naval operations during World War II. This period was marked by the aggressive actions of German U-boats and commerce raiders, which significantly threatened Allied shipping across the Atlantic, the Mediterranean, and the North Sea. Designed for combat, HMS Duke of York and her sister ships were equipped to counter the Axis navies. While not as heavily armed as the German Bismarck-class battleships, which had 8 15-inch guns, Duke of York boasted a faster rate of fire and better maneuverability. These capabilities were vital in engagements with formidable adversaries, such as the Italian Littorio-class battleships, which were slightly faster and carried 9 15-inch guns, but lacked the advanced radar systems installed on the British ships. In December 1941, HMS Duke of York had a critical role beyond combat. transporting British Prime Minister Winston Churchill to the United States. This mission facilitated crucial talks with President Franklin D. Roosevelt, focusing on strengthening the Allied efforts against the Axis powers in Europe and Asia. Following this diplomatic mission, in March 1942, HMS Duke of York participated in convoy PQ-12, escorting merchant ships carrying essential supplies from Britain to the Soviet Union. The convoy, also comprising 6 destroyers, the cruiser Kenya and the battlecruiser Renown, encountered the German commerce raider Tirpitz. Given the threat posed by Tirpitz, Admiral John Tover called for additional naval support. The arrival of King George V and an aircraft carrier helped secure the convoy, forcing Tirpitz to withdraw and allowing the safe passage of PQ-12 to Murmansk. This operation demonstrated the strategic role of HMS Duke of York in securing vital supply routes to Allied nations. Due to the success of her previous mission, Duke of York was called again to action to join convoy PQ-13 on March 29, 1942. At first, the journey proceeded as planned, but once it reached Reykjavik, it was attacked by Luftwaffe aircraft. Several Kriegsmarine destroyers then closed in to hunt down the convoy from multiple directions. Allied ships began to be targeted one after another. Nonetheless, Duke of York's guns roared and targeted the enemy vessels from afar. She then detected enemy submarines and called in for support from other British and Soviet ships nearby. Despite the restless pursuit by the Germans, Duke of York kept them at bay, ensuring most of the Allied vessels made it to Soviet ports. Following an accident King George V suffered after ramming and sinking the destroyer Punjabi in April, Duke of York relieved her for escort duties until May. Shortly afterward, the battleship became the cornerstone of convoy QP-14 in September 1942, escorting more Allied ships in a return journey from Arkhangelsk in the Soviet Union to Loch Ewe, Scotland. For this operation, Duke of York was joined by USS Washington and other American vessels. During the long journey, which lasted from September 13th to 26th, 3 Allied merchant ships and 2 warships were sunk at the cost of 1 destroyed enemy U-boat and others damaged. Duke of York made it out without a scratch and earned praise from the merchant ships for her role in combat operations against the enemy. Despite her accomplishments, there was no rest for Duke of York. On October 30th, 1942, the Royal Navy battleship was called to become the flagship of Force H at Gibraltar, flying the flag of Vice Admiral E.N. Seifert. Her duty was far from straightforward: provide fire support for the upcoming Allied landings in Axis-occupied North Africa and hold off any attack by the Italian fleet. The top-secret plan, codenamed Operation Torch, envisioned a 3-pronged attack on Casablanca, Oran, and Algiers to decimate enemy defenses before a series of amphibious landings with infantry and armor that would then make a dash for Tunis. During the operation, which marked the first time American troops took the fight against the Axis in a large-scale operation, Duke of York was targeted by Italian aircraft on multiple occasions with little success. Accurate anti-aircraft fire from the crew kept Duke of York out of harm's way, blocking any hostile aircraft from landing any direct hits and allowing the Allied troops to disembark and engage the Axis troops with ground firepower. After a thorough refit, HMS Duke of York resumed her vital role as the flagship of Force H on May 14, 1943, in preparation for Operation Husky, the Allied invasion of Sicily. This operation also involved her sister ships, HMS King George V and Howe, targeting the Axis powers' strategic positions in the region. Churchill referred to this mission as an attack on the Axis underbelly, which posed considerable challenges due to the quick mobilization of German and Italian troops. In the thick of Operation Husky, Duke of York played a critical strategic and supportive role, focusing on providing naval gunfire support to weaken enemy defenses and deter any counterattacks from Axis naval forces. This naval barrage facilitated the initial landings and subsequent Allied push into Italy. As the Allied forces progressed, Duke of York and HMS Anson were redeployed in June 1943 to join a U.S. Navy contingent for Operation Gearbox. This task force, which included the USS Alabama and South Dakota, was assigned to provide naval fire support for operations in Spitsbergen and the Kola Inlet, extending the reach of Allied naval power. In July, Duke of York undertook diversionary operations under the codenames Camera and Governor of Norway. These operations were designed to distract German forces and divert their attention away from the main fight on the Italian peninsula, thereby easing pressure on Allied ground forces. By October 1943, the focus of Duke of York's mission shifted dramatically to the offensive. She joined a fleet of Allied cruisers and destroyers, including the carrier USS Ranger, for Operation Leader. This series of bold raids targeted German shipping close to Norway, resulting in the sinking of 4 enemy merchant ships and damaging several others. This aggressive action forced the Kriegsmarine to assume a defensive posture, crucially disrupting their supply lines and contributing significantly to the Allies' efforts in the region. While HMS Duke of York supported operations in Norway, the Kriegsmarine battleship Scharnhorst, alongside Tirpitz, operated in the Arctic waters, targeting convoys bound for the Soviet Union. Anticipating attacks on these vital supply routes, the Royal Navy reinforced convoy JW-55B with heavy escorts, assembling 2 surface forces ready to counter any enemy engagement. Duke of York was integral to Force 2, tasked with defending the convoy. True to predictions, Scharnhorst, accompanied by destroyers, launched an assault on convoy JW-55B on December 26, 1943, culminating in the Battle of the North Cape. Scharnhorst, though faster, with speeds of up to 32 knots and equipped with 9 11-inch guns, was outclassed by Duke of York's 14-inch guns in terms of power, armor, and range. The confrontation began under the Arctic's dark skies, with initial engagements by cruisers HMS Belfast, Norfolk, and Sheffield. Their gunfire forced Scharnhorst to retreat, though not critically damaged at this stage. Duke of York and her group then maneuvered to cut off Scharnhorst's escape route. Employing radar to track the German battleship, Duke of York closed in and opened fire at approximately 12,000 yards. The radar-directed gunfire proved accurate and devastating, especially effective given the poor visibility conditions. Scharnhorst, hampered by the thick fog and multiple hits, saw her speed and combat effectiveness severely diminished. A critical hit from Duke of York disabled Scharnhorst's radar, further impairing her navigational capabilities in the fog. Now crippled and outnumbered by several Royal Navy destroyers and cruisers, Scharnhorst attempted a desperate escape. Realizing the futility of their situation, her crew prepared for a last stand. Despite landing several hits on Duke of York, the damage inflicted was minimal. Duke of York's crew then landed a crucial hit on Scharnhorst's boiler room, significantly slowing her down and allowing the British forces to converge for a decisive strike. Over 30 torpedoes were launched, with 3 hitting their target. Duke of York continued the barrage from 10,000 yards, effectively neutralizing Scharnhorst for good. After enduring more than a dozen hits and over 40 torpedoes, Scharnhorst began to sink, with only 36 of a 1,900-man crew surviving. Her defeat marked a significant victory for the Royal Navy, demonstrating the strategic importance of radar technology in naval warfare and removing a major threat from the Kriegsmarine's arsenal. After an overhaul in 1944, Duke of York continued providing escort duties to Allied convoys in the Arctic before being relocated to the Pacific with her sister ship, Ensign. Both battleships joined the fight against the Empire of Japan in July 1945, when the Imperial Navy was already decimated. She barely saw action in the Pacific, besides supporting Allied carriers conducting air raids across Japan. After participating in Japan's surrender ceremony, Duke of York remained the home fleet's flagship until her decommissioning in April 1949 and eventual scrap in May 1957. HMS Duke of York's service during World War II left a legacy marked by her decisive role in the sinking of the Scharnhorst at the Battle of the North Cape.